A lot of it doesn't really matter. There's just a little bit that is essential, and if you can identify that even before you start a big project and just focus on that, you actually have a lot less to do.
Have you ever looked up to someone, a role model, a mentor, and have so much to thank them for? As this episode is very special to me. This is with the man that got me to make one of the best decisions of my life. James Schramko, I give huge thanks to, because he's really the person that helped me to go from being a personal trainer to now running 2 online businesses, being able to do it anywhere from the world, and being able to be here giving this to you right now. Hi, I'm Chris Dufay and you're watching Breaking Success. This is the show that gives you the answers for you to build the body, the business, and the life that you love. In this episode, we talk about how you can work less and earn more. And yes, I'm dead serious about that. We also dive into how you need to be asking better questions and how is it that you can actually design your business? How is it that you can design your life so you're ultimately doing what it is that you really want? For you to be able to impact the people doing the work that you love, for you to earn the money that you really want, and for you to live with the freedom that you really want as well. There's so much to take away in this episode, and I'm so happy that I got to be able to sit down with James in his home and share this with you. Now, this is really exciting for me to be able to sit down here in James's home, because I credit James to being the one person that really got me to getting started to where I am right now. So James, I want to say face to face, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you've done. The amount of content, quality content that you've been able to produce is astronomical. And what I want to dive straight into is the simplicity part of it, because I feel like in the world of too much information, there's too much for us to even poke a stick at when it comes to building a business, building a life that you want. What is it that you've been able to do so well? Why do you believe you've been able to do it so well that it is so applicable, usable, practical for people to use?
I think I actually went through that phase of doing everything and then reduced down again.
Yeah.
So after you go through that whole, like a python eating a sheep.
Yeah.
Like after that, you think, you know what? I'm just going to get the fillet, and I'll skip the fur and all the rest. So it's actually, I think I just went through that inevitable phase when I was starting out. If you'd have to go back over 10 years ago, and there wasn't really any one single expert who was laying it down for me that was easy to follow, who was in this country, who wasn't trying to just fleece people at events and those sort of things. So I had to go on this exploration and find all the sources and track them back. And a lot of the time I ended up back at business books that were written before the internet.
Yeah.
And then I took all of that and then just reduced it down, I guess like a chef would a sauce, and you just end up with the good stuff. And I just throw away all the rest. And I guess the 80-20 is a good summary that most people have heard about by now, but just understanding that a lot of it doesn't really matter. There's just a little bit that is essential, and if you can identify that even before you start a big project and just focus on that, you actually have a lot less to do and you can get a bigger result from it.
How do you help people find that? Because I think that's one of your superpowers when it comes to this stuff. How do you help people actually clear away everything and be like, no, this is all you need to focus on to be your biggest leverage point?
Usually I'll find the data within what they've already got. If they're starting from scratch, I'll be okay, well, what do you already do? What do you already like? When no one's looking and you're not on the clock, what do you actually gravitate towards? So I'm looking for a level of interest or competence. And what sort of assets do they have? Who do they know? What work has already been done that we can look at? Now, if they've already got something, it's even easier. I could say, okay, what are your top 3 products? Which customers do you enjoy dealing with the most? Where does your traffic come from? Why do people already buy from you? If they could tell me the answers to that, then I will then say, well, let's see if we can engineer more of that, and let's stop chasing our tail for all the stuff that's not even producing, or the products that aren't selling, or the traffic that isn't working.
As soon as you said that, it was like answers were going through in my head, and I was like, oh, there's stuff immediately you can cut away, and it opens up to clarity. And I think that's where you ask really good questions, because I remember like going back, so I totally remember first consuming your podcast, when I was in Dubai, and then I started to consume everything else. And then I remember it was just before you held one of the live events, and I remember I was like, oh my god, this is in Manly, like obviously coming from Manly, I was like, this is in hometown. And I remember it was about a month before the actual event. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it back, and I was gutted. Made the next year's event, very thankfully spoke at the year after that, and it was always amazing to see how the quality of the questions that I was able to get from you, from the guests that you interview, from the content that you put out, from the interactions that we've had. I especially remember actually being in the Silver Circle meetup, and it was just so obvious how you just quickly cleared the chafe and got to what was needed, and everybody in the room appreciated that so much. And it was whether someone was starting out or a 6 or a 7 or an 8 figure earner, how you're able to do that. How do you do it for yourself?
It's the same process.
Yeah.
I think you really have struck onto the pulse. It's about asking good questions. I remember hearing from somebody, and I think it might have been Yannick Silva, that you ask better questions, you get better answers. But before that, I already knew from spin selling that I was studying when I was learning about sales that certain questions get better results. And the Socratic method of teaching was always something that I used when I was training people. Rather than just give them the answer, I might ask them a question. And it takes discipline to do that. So you know how you see people up on the stage, maybe at a body contest?
Yeah.
It's not, you look at them, you think, well, they probably lifted a few weights in their lifetime. Like they didn't start last week, did they?
Yeah.
So when I get to a room and there's business people and I'm asking the questions, I've already been doing that for years, every single week, over and over again. So for me, it becomes a reflex action. It's almost a automatic reflex, if you like.
Yep.
So I'm just automatically asking questions of myself, even when I'm surfing, or I might wake up from a sleep and have clarity on something. I remember reading about Maxwell Maltz wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. He was a plastic surgeon, and he was fascinated with why do some patients still feel bad about themselves even after he makes them look beautiful. And he realized that it's inside, and he was talking about us being goal-seeking devices, that we program ourselves consciously and then our subconscious works on the answers. So I also leave my mind to actually take care of some things. I do have this confidence that I can solve a problem when it comes up. I just have a knowing that I can solve it. In the same way that I'm confident that I can remember things if I give myself time to just let it come out and not force it. So I guess it's a mindset thing. It's a muscle that you keep using, and it actually can be really exhausting when you go through a round of questions. For example, if you're in business and you've ever hired a website designer or a copywriter, the first thing they'll do is ask you for a brief. They'll pummel you with questions. You know, who's your customer? You know, what do they like? What don't they like? Where do they live? What are they buying now? What are their preferences? These things, and it forces you to think, and you can be exhausted after that. But if you do it over and over again, you actually get used to it.
What about probably the biggest part that I'm still learning from at this point? You brought up surfing, and it's something I don't remember when you kind of like planted this seed in me, but it was, why do we live a life with compromises? Why are we making compromises every day? And it's something that's really consumed me lately. It's really why I'm doing this right now with you, because you planted that one seed. How did you get to that point? Because I feel like that is one of the most profound insights that we can actually start grabbing onto and using to make better decisions.
I think a good chunk of that was probably drummed into me by a very eccentric boss that I had, who would question everything. He was the ultimate contrarian, and he would just zag when everyone zigs. He would turn up to a Mercedes-Benz head office meeting in a Porsche or a Ferrari just to see their reaction. And he really pushed this idea onto me, you know, that people are compromised. He talked about people getting on the drip on finance. You know, the banks pushed them into loans, keep upping their credit card, getting them to buy houses, get attached to the idea of a mortgage. And once they're on the drip, then they are literally like they're plugged into this machine they can't escape from, and they're stuck. Yeah. And then there were some life experience things that I saw as well when I was at a formative age. My parents, because my dad will say because of Paul Keating and economic factors, the interest rates went up very quickly. Yeah. In the late 80s and early 90s. There was basically a collapse of the financial markets, and our family went from being kind of wealthy to being kind of poor instantly. And I realized how important it was not to be relying on that one income, a job. Because
how old were you then?
I think I would have been late teens, 19 or 20. About that time I left studying and got a job full time, and as a debt collector, which is what you do in a recession, right? So I've always had good timing with the market. And then, the funny thing is, years later, I found myself in the exact same position, where I'm on a high wage, and then the US, global financial crisis was starting to unravel, and I'm in the luxury car segment at a top wage, thinking, hang on, can't end well. At some point, if there's a pullback in luxury spending, my job will be extinguished. So that's what drove me to get paid by many, many people, which is effectively what you're doing as a business owner. Yes. Saying, listen, I would rather have 1,000 customers give me a little bit each, or okay, I'll take a few dozen, pay me a lot each. That's fine, but I want to spread my risk, and I don't want that compromise of single source dependency. Yeah. So the other thing, I learned a lot from a chief financial officer we had. I used to work very closely with him and study the numbers of the business. And we'd
Mercedes?
Yeah. Him and I were effectively running a $100 million a year business, as the two owners were busy scrapping over, who owns the business and who hates each other the most. And while that was happening, him and I were just running this business. And he was also strong on the single source dependency. We didn't want to be reliant on one person. Same as if I spoke to a client today, and he has 3 salespeople, and one of them is underperforming. Like, one can sell 10, one can sell 5, and the other one sold 0 for the month. And I said, imagine if your worst salesperson was your only salesperson, you wouldn't even know that you have a problem. Yeah. Like, you possibly think your product can't be sold with a direct response sales team. Yeah. But because you have multiple salespeople, you've reduced that compromise, and now you can benchmark, and now you get your answers. So, removing compromise is important, I think.
On a business aspect, I do remember learning from you as well, like the Noah's Ark theory of when you start bringing people on as a team, because it is so much better to have 2 people instead of 1, because one, if somebody falls off, okay, that's okay, but you can get rid of another person, so they kind of like self-select.
Especially when you're small, and when it's you hiring your first person, you train them up, and then something happens and they go, and then it's like back to you. Yeah, it's like back to zero. It's so devastating. Yeah. And you can only do that a few times until you say, you know what, hiring sucks. Yeah. I'm not good at managing people. I'm gonna just do it myself. Yeah. And then you can never really stretch past a certain point. Maybe a few $100,000 or up to $1 million a year with a very small team. You get a little team of 5 people, you can go into the millions.
And then as well, I find that the scariness goes away, because it's not like it's just dependent on you, or maybe just one other person. Do you know what I mean? If you get hit by a bus, or your salesperson gets hit by a bus, then
hey, look, one of my team members is leaving after 6.5 years to go into his own business, and I can shake his hand and say, congratulations, like, well done, this is fantastic, you've learnt so much, and look at you go now. Rather than, oh crap, I'm going to have to go and man the support desk or whatever. Like, it's not going to happen, because we're like a bucket of water. When you pull the hand out, it'll just assume the position.
Now, when it comes to somebody building their business, I want to go into building their business and building their lifestyle. Maybe we'll start with building the business first. How do you help somebody actually get a good concept of what that business needs to look like? Because I find a lot of people are stuck on that model, and therefore, what does that actually give them? So how do you help with that?
A few things is, it doesn't really matter how you start, because it almost certainly won't end up like that. So that really helps you just get rolling.
Yeah.
Like if you know for a fact that your business will not look like this in the future. Like if we went down to my garage and I showed you a couple of my archive boxes, you'd see my early iterations of my online business.
Yeah.
I could show you maps that look like the wiring diagram from the space shuttle. I was planning and scheming and getting it all right in my head before I implemented, and it just took a long time and I got very little results from that.
Yeah.
Now I can do so much with so little because I just start and then you make changes as you go. So whatever you start is not how it's going to finish, so you might as well just start. The other thing is you can get pretty close to the mark by working with an actual audience and a need that they have rather than your great idea that you just feel the world needs.
Yes.
Which is a common thing, and that's great.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that every now and then there'll be a Facebook or a Google or something that wasn't there before, but it's rare.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to start with an audience who really needs something and just solve their problem.
Yeah.
And from there, once you learn the rules and you've got the system and you've got some income coming in and you're growing, that's when you can be a bit more speculative.
I like that because, and that's where, looking back and when I started, it was produce content, get in front of the camera. I started the podcast, like everything started and it was just like, focus on the production and the output of the content, and the other stuff is going to be able to come later. And it's so true. It's like so many people think, oh, I've got a great idea, doing this is fantastic. They build it, they start putting everything together, and then when they try and sell it, it's like, okay, crickets. It's not actually coming through because maybe they're not even solving a problem that isn't even really there.
Yeah, they're attached to the idea. So it's good to sell it first and then create it if you can.
Yes.
And people say, well, how can you possibly do that? But think about a live event. Isn't that exactly what it is?
Yeah.
You put up a page, you invite people to see your offer, they pay the money, and then you run the event. So you're actually getting paid first, and if for some reason it didn't sell or the event's not going to go ahead, then you just refund everyone their ticket and the deal's off.
Yeah.
So it is actually possible to get paid first. You could do it with coaching, you can do it with services, you can do it with events. And even sites like Kickstarter and that, these days people are getting the money before they even create a physical product.
Yeah.
So it really can be done to test the offer before you get too far down the track.
Okay, now when it comes to designing the lifestyle side of things, this is something where I think you've led a great example for myself to be able to go through. How did you go from being in Mercedes, starting the online business, obviously the iterations and the growth of there, to now being in this position? Like, how have you kind of seen those pivotal points?
I really liked kicking my shoes off when I got home. It just didn't make sense to me when I'm kissing my family goodbye in the morning, hopping in the car, waiting in traffic, getting there, building up some other guy's business, dealing with all his nightmares for a fixed income, and then coming home again after 8 or 9 hours and doing it all again the next day. And it just felt like I'm delaying my life. I wasn't living, I was in prison.
Yep.
It was like a prison sentence. And I'd see people go past with a utility and a motocross bike on it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how can that guy go motocross riding during the day?
Yeah.
And then I'd see people with surfboards on the rack. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I'm successful, make $300,000 a year.
Yep.
I've got Mont Blanc cufflinks and a Rolex. I'm the king of the chart, but I don't feel like it's connected. So I just got inspired because of the single source dependency of my income, because of seeing successful business owner after successful business owner getting an idea. Well, maybe a business is how I can switch sides of the desk.
Yeah.
I want to go from selling the Mercedes-Benz to buying the Mercedes-Benz. Yeah. And I want to build a business. I didn't know what business and I didn't know how and I didn't know where, but I had this feeling that it might be something to do with selling or training, and that I should probably learn how to build a website. Yeah. So I did some sales conferences. I got paid for that. And I reinvested that into a laptop, and then every night I would run the cord over to the telephone line, dial up, and just plug away trying to build a website on my lap like this while we're watching TV.
How long did it take?
It was a struggle. It took me about 9 months until I made $49.25 in commission.
Yeah.
And it was, that was pretty slow. It would take me like 9 minutes these days to make that. And I wouldn't have to do anything for it.
Yeah.
It's so extremely difficult at the beginning. And you just want to stress, I didn't have the resources that are available to people now, which is really how I said you don't end up where you start. My business now is the solution that I needed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like that what would you write to yourself 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Like I would say, just build this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to remove that struggle for people, because it is just, I don't think most people have the mindset or the discipline to get through it. And I'm not saying that with any hint of arrogance. I'm just saying, like, when you go to a bodybuilding competition, not everyone in the gym is going to be able to get to that point, are they? Only a small percentage. But a lot of people could lose 10 or 20 pounds and get themselves a lot fitter with some effort. If they had a plan and a trainer and they've got the route, they could get a long way down the track with some help.
What are the common things you're seeing with the people that are at the higher level? Like, what are they doing right? And what's kind of the difference between that top level and the people that are doing okay, don't get me wrong, but like they're just not getting into that stage?
The biggest difference is you switch from how can I do this to who can do this.
Yeah.
You just got to let go of it.
Yeah.
If you can't let go of it, you'll be stuck. And it's so easy to get stuck into doing things. So the big difference for someone making $10 million a year plus from $500,000 a year is they're not doing many of the things in the business compared to that person at the lower level.
What are the things that they're stepping away from mainly? I know it's extremely
there's so many things, but running their events, making their videos, creating their content, writing their sales letters, emails, managing their community, coaching their customers, building their products, supporting their products. So the easy wins for someone that's very low down on the ladder is to let go of support and to get help with their content or traffic.
Yes.
So like hiring an agency to do their ads, or getting a little team to prepare their content and get it on the blog and stuff. You should not be. Absolutely should
Don't
not
log
be.
into WordPress.
Not logging into WordPress. Not logging into your email system. Not logging into much at all, except for wherever your team lives. And for me, that would be on Slack. That's where I log into. And I log in for my customers to deliver my coaching. So most of my energy is directed into fulfillment. So if I'm coaching someone at a high level, I will still be doing that, but that's about all that I'm doing.
Yes.
And I do that mostly 2 days a week. My calendar is open on Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's it. The rest of the time I can potter or write or review or check in on the team or have a look into the analytics or whatever, or learn something. I'm constantly learning and researching as well.
Okay, so personally, say just before being here, I spent a month in LA, and my goal, my experiment with LA was I want to only work 8 hours a week in that business and for it to run. Now, I stuck with it and it was really good. There were some holes in the business, so it wasn't fantastic. Some shit hit the fan, and that's okay. But it was great for me to be able to go, I really don't need to be doing that stuff that I thought. It was completely ego driven. I thought, do you mean it has to be me? And it certainly does not have to be me.
It could be ego driven, but it's also it can just be blindness or ignorance. We just don't realize other people could do it. And there's so many talented people who can do amazing things. Like I was doing all of the stuff in the beginning, every single thing, and I thought it would be hard to hand off, but by day in my dealership I was handing off everything, and by night I was doing everything. It's like, what am I doing? This is crazy. I went from being the top of the tree to the bottom. I went from director to mailroom, and that process of getting rid of all the stuff, a lot of it really revolves around having money come in the door, which revolves around having an offer that converts, which revolves around knowing who your market is and what they need. So if you can get those things lined up, that's where I would spend all your time and energy.
I think you just said the secret sauce, if there ever really was one. Know your audience, but really a converting offer.
You've got to have something people would like to buy.
Yeah.
If you've got that, you get money in the door,
Yeah.
and then you can start hiring and training, doing all those things. Until you've got that, you've got a very frustrating hobby.
I'm astounded with how many people I hear are running Facebook ads or trying to game an algorithm on some social media platform, or they're just pumping out heaps of content or whatever, and they're trying and they're stuck, and it's like, well, does anybody actually want to buy what it is that you've got? And it's a clear no at the end of the day with the situation that we're in. How do you help somebody find a high converting offer?
That really is the hardest thing of all. I think that's, if you can get the high converting offer, then everything else unlocks.
Yeah.
Until you get to that, and it can take a while for some people. It revolves around sales copy.
Yeah.
It revolves around knowing your audience. Like, there's just so many hurdles. They can't build the website. They don't know how to write sales copy. They're not even sure who it's for. They've got to get a way to get the money, then deliver the product. So there's just a lot of obstacles. So for me, I solved that by being an affiliate.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I just sold someone else's product. So then all I had to know is my audience, and enough to be able to put together a page to send people where they can go and buy the product.
Yeah.
That took a lot of the pieces out of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So I might suggest that, perhaps sell someone else's product to learn the market. And when you feel like you've got the market, then you can, what's called vertically integrate.
Yep.
You can just take over and build your own product. Because eventually, that's where you have a lot more control.
Yes. Okay. Let's go back to the lifestyle part and the ability. Like, this view is astounding. Looking over Manly right now. How often do you surf, James?
Every day.
Every day. Multiple times a day.
In summer, yeah.
In summer.
Like,
Okay.
generally.
Beautiful. The waves are pretty small today, but that's okay. we'll let it pick up. Sorry. How do you help people design their lifestyle? I feel like a lot of people actually don't have the clarity around that, especially when it comes to success. We've talked about the business, we've talked a little bit about the money side of things, and I feel like a lot of the lifestyle and actually what you do and how you live day to day is completely forgotten about.
Yeah, it's not even thought about.
Yeah.
Like, first we go back to why do we have Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, weekends and stuff. And I think potentially goes back to the textile industry when they got those machines to make, to weave blankets and stuff, like, and make shirts and cotton. That industry sort of imprisoned people because now they had to go to a place and be there for 8 hours a day, and then that sort of got the labour. Then they make school to train people to be obedient and to follow instructions, so that when they finish school, they can go to man the machine.
Yeah.
So it could actually go back to there, and maybe it's time to question that. So a lot of the people I've studied, like Peter Drucker, who talked about thought leaders before there was thought leaders, that we would get paid for our knowledge instead of our time to sit there and man a machine. Maybe it's time to just question the whole weekends and Monday to Friday thing, and make your own routine. So for me, it's like a 2-day work week and 5 days off. And I want to be counter-cyclical. I want to go to the cinema when it's empty, instead of packed out and waiting in a line. I like to go to the shops, during mid-morning on a Monday. There's nobody there, right? And I could have the run of the place. It's like, I feel like a Hollywood celebrity. They've closed the shopping centre just for me. And you can do that. It's I buy my winter wetsuit at the end of winter when it's summer, and they're half price, and I just stick it in the cupboard for a while, and then come winter I got a brand new wetsuit. Because people are they're just caught into the way everyone else thinks. Yes. So and also learning a little bit about investing. I'm wary about the movement of the masses. I'm wanting.
In a sense, when everyone's zigging, you zag.
Pretty much.
Okay, interesting.
I do so many things in business differently than the way the experts say that you should do it. And somehow, I've got the business that I wouldn't trade for quids. Like, they say you've got to do launches. I don't. They say that you need affiliates. I don't. They say you should be spending an enormous amount on paid Facebook traffic. I don't. They say you should have a Facebook group. I don't. I mean, there's so many of these things that I've just said, well, actually no. And I managed to to stick out for that in a way.
Not just stick out, but you've excelled.
Yeah, I've excelled at it, and I've really held my line for a decade. There's not much has changed in my philosophy.
Yeah.
Small little adjustments, but I'm not the first one to rush into Periscope.
Yeah.
I'll be the one saying, well, let's see if they all fall off a cliff, which they do.
But also, this is very true, but also you're just sticking with what's working.
Yeah.
And you're doubling down on what's working, and
Yes.
that's where I feel like, okay, you can be not an early adopter to something, you can jump on something and when it comes out, that's all great, but if you lose focus on what's actually working, well then when it falls apart, it's really your own fault.
It's if you read like The Dip by Seth Godin, it's good to know your timing, like when to get out.
Yeah.
So last year I sold my service businesses, and I got a great payout, and transferred the team out. So we went from a large business to a small business pretty much overnight.
Yeah.
We went from 60 people to 7.
Unreal.
I got some money for my efforts for creating this business machine. And the funny thing is, for the buyer, who's still a student of mine, he's been able to keep growing the business with my help, and it's really profitable. So he had a great buy, just maintaining my path. Actually, my priorities are relationships.
Yeah.
So my wife and my family, kids, parents, who I spend a lot of time with. Surfing every day. That's my metronome. That's my routine. My life-giving habit. It's changed my life.
That's awesome.
Because it's helped me with my food, my fitness. Like if you go back pre-surfing, I was just seizing up with osteoarthritis, could hardly move.
Wow.
And now I don't take any medication. I'm fantastic, fit, super fit compared to before. Mentally alert, just excited to wake up and check the waves. I want to work with good customers only, so I'm always putting the bar up a bit, but tuning the filter. So there's a minimum criteria for my highest level group that makes those people exciting to work with.
Yes.
I'm now adding more revenue share deals. So now I'm more like a silent partner in people's businesses, and they just pay me a small percentage of their revenue, and I quietly behind the scenes help them grow their empire. I don't need to be a director, and I don't need to be a shareholder. I'm just basically in the background on their team. And those deals are where I'm going, and eventually I'll just refine down the access to me through the lowest. On the 1st of January, my coaching rates for my lowest program will double.
Awesome.
And that sort of coincides with the timing of my book, because I'll bring in more opportunities, and I'll be able to help those people who bring more to the table more. So I can do more with more, if that makes sense. Someone who's already in motion, I think about this like a motorcycle. I can do more for someone who's stuck in 3rd gear and didn't know there's 5th, 6th, 7th gear. I can help them, hey, you know what, pull the clutch in, click that thing and let it out and accelerate. They're like, whoa! Versus someone who's like, oh, what is this? Oh, that's a motorbike. Okay, so let's just hop on. It's really, it's harder to teach someone from the beginning. The first few steps, and there's plenty of people who are serving that market, but there's not so many people who can serve the market of the higher end up the scale, and I like that. That's more intriguing for me. And so I know my zone, my sweet spot, and I'm just moving more and more into that sweet spot with less and less.
Why did it take you so long to write this book?
I wasn't ready before. I did try 5 years ago, and I paid someone $10,000 to help me and read my transcriptions and to help me put it all together. And she sort of flaked on me, which was so disappointing at the time. And then by the time she got back to me a couple of years later, I'd lost the interest in that and was on to other things. But I really feel now, having sold my businesses and having refined my thinking through weekly calls for the last 5 years since, I've now been able to question everything in the book. And some things in the book say the exact opposite of what other people say. Some people say, the sky's the limit, and people like L.A. Goldratt will say the sky is never the limit. Like we can go way past the sky. Like if the sky's the limit, well, what do we do on the moon or Mars? So I've challenged a lot of my thinking. Other things that I used to think, I've now been able to refine my thoughts on that. So it's now the best collection of ideas that people would know me for in one place.
Nice. Good. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read it. Okay, a few short questions, probably go a little bit deeper. When did you buy your first Merc?
When I was 17.
Okay.
I paid $1,000. I bought a 190B, a 1959 model, and this is in 1988.
Yeah.
Up in Tamworth, and so it had no rust. It had a little bit of rust in the headlight surrounds from cow dung, because that's very acidic. And it was sitting on some guy's farm, and I saw it in a Unique Cars magazine. I actually went up there, paid the $1,000, and I worked in Tamworth for 2 weeks building a car trailer at a local engineering shop through a friend of a friend's to pay my way to get the car sent to Sydney. So we used that car trailer to bring it back, and through my year 12 we restored this car, my dad and I, every weekend. We stripped it down, we repainted it and assembled this beautiful restored Mercedes-Benz 190B, and I sold it when I was 18. I sold it the next year for $6,500.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That was a good investment straight up, wasn't it?
I always did well with cars.
Yeah.
So I had dozens of cars in my teens. My first car actually I bought when I was 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, after school one day, me, 2 friends of mine caught a bus to Randwick from North Sydney.
Yeah.
And we went out to Rainbow Parade, and we found this old Greek guy had a Volkswagen Beetle in his back garden. It was unregistered, and we haggled him to $100. We paid $33 each for this car. We got it shipped back home, and over the next few months, my friends and I ground off the bolts, took the shell off it. We bought metal pipes and made a rally car out of it like Mad Max. And then we took it to my friend's farm, and we drove that at school holidays, every school holidays, all through school. And so I had clocked up hundreds of thousands of kilometres by the time I was able to legally drive. And to say that I was obsessed with driving is an understatement.
Really?
And
do you still drive now? Because like living in Manly, I know
you don't drive so much here. But I'm taking my kid to school at the moment because he had some leg operation, and I visit my parents up the coast. It's I don't do many kilometres. I would do 8,000 kilometres a year. It's just for Americans that's really not much.
Yeah, totally. Okay, when did or what do you think the tipping point was for surfing?
Oh, that one's easy. I live in Manly. I buy food from the local surf shop that makes all these hippie foods, quinoas and avocados and all, smashed things and raw things and all that. And they're all very nice, friendly people, and their skin's glowing and they're healthy and they're chilled and relaxed, and I just like the culture. They're kind of nice. And when I moved here 5 years ago, I was kind of an outsider, even though I lived here when I was 5 in the building just behind there. And I just was sort of drawn to them, and then I went to Hawaii on a retreat with Ezra and I. We have a podcast together. We ran our first retreat. We had a small crew of people there, and we helped them with their business. And then when it was finished, Ezra grabbed a surfboard, chucked it in the back of his car. We went down to the beach, and he just hopped on. He took his shirt off, hopped on it, and paddled out. And I'm like, are you insane? This is the North Shore of Hawaii, like pipeline. And he's right there, near there. It was Chum's Reef. It's more gentle. But he said, come on, let's go. So Ezra's wife, Carrie, and I went out with him in the surf at Chum's. And he said, when you fall, just fall flat like a pancake. I'm like, why? And he goes, because there's a razor sharp reef, like just this deep. I'm like, and you're bringing us here to surf because... Anyway, I kind of liked it. I stood up for like a millisecond, and it was challenging. And then Ezra had a client who has an e-commerce store, because he's into e-commerce, that sells surfboards. And he chatted to the guy, and I met the guy, and he actually brought around a board for me to borrow. It was like 9 foot 2 inches long.
Yeah.
Just fits in the elevator.
Yeah.
And I brought it upstairs, and I'd go down and just try and surf every day, even through winter. And so anyway, 4 years later now, I'm getting much better at it.
Yeah. You're putting your practice hours in at the end of the day.
I've done my 10,000 hours. I've literally surfed every day for 4 years.
Wow.
Some days twice. Missed a few days here or there. If I'm on a plane or in a country where I can't, landlocked, like Texas or something.
Yeah. I thought that one.
But I would have surfed easily 1,500 times. Yeah.
Okay. And what about the fact of running retreats so you can go surfing?
Yeah,
I think that's a nice.
Yeah, so I'll go to Bali, Fiji, Maldives, Philippines. I'll make sure Waikiki, San Diego. If somewhere has surf, that's a very high chance that I'll be able to visit there and combine my luxuries. So for me, the Maldives has been just a tearaway success.
Yeah.
That's like my ultimate dream. Like surfing, talking about business for a week or two.
Yeah.
So I spent half of September on a boat, getting paid for it, to surf 34 times.
34 times.
More or less, roughly exactly 34 times in the 2 weeks. And every day after surfing 3 times a day, we'd go up to a beanbag, get a cocktail, and then we'd have a 1 hour mastermind before dinner, and then over dinner talk, and then just go and sleep again until the next day. It was just incredible. And of those 2 weeks, half those people rebooked next year, and it's completely sold out already, like a year in advance.
Yeah.
And now we're taking the waiting list for the year after. Yeah. It's become kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
This is so good. And I think especially with the whole term of breaking success was, number one, redefining it, which I think you are a master at redefining things and asking those questions. Like, continually in this conversation you brought about that you were able to look at something with a different perspective, ask a different question, and look at things that, why are people doing it that way? Like, why do we have to do it that way? Like, why do we have to run Facebook groups? And I remember when that came out and you were vocal about, no, like, do you know, I've got my membership and my group, I'm going to stick with it this way, and this is my reasons why, and it is perfect sense.
Yeah.
Why for example, why take somebody off a platform away from your business and what you're actually dealing with? Not a good thing, especially.
Well, it's like, in my case, I'm thinking, if I truly want to help this person, should I send them into the vortex of distraction? Like, distraction is the enemy.
Yeah.
And you know what you're saying? I think that one thing that I was fortunate about, it was about 2001, the head honchos at Daimler Chrysler at the time, Mercedes-Benz head office, they were all big on this change management and understanding change. I read up some pretty heavy textbooks about it, but I just got comfortable with the idea then, you know what, if there's anything I can rely on for the rest of my life, it's change. So I'm going to embrace change, I'm going to celebrate change. When change comes along, I'll say, hey, I was expecting you. Yeah. I know you. Yeah. That's where people come unstuck. They just don't accept change. They can't accept change, and they go down because of it. If you can be okay with change, you've got a much better chance in business. So if I appear to adapt and transform and work around things like water, from Sun Tzu, The Art of War, probably a few thousand years before Bruce Lee, who's often quoted for that, then that's because I'm okay with change. I'll roll with it. I can manage.
Okay, so when it comes to redefining what success is, making sure that we're looking at it from all perspectives, what is the one thing you want somebody to walk away and actually take action on from joining us in this conversation now?
Well, I'd just say one thing. If you're like most people, you may have scribbled some notes while we've been talking. You've had some ideas, because that's what I'm trying to do, is fire off. That's why sometimes I say things that are controversial. I want their brain to stop and go, hang on a minute, I want to argue about that. And that's like, hey, that's what I wanted. I want the thought. If you wrote stuff down, just circle one of those things and put it on a post-it note in front of your computer or somewhere where you can see it, and just commit to doing that. And if you can nail that, then do another one. If that's working. There's a system there. That's a process.
Beautiful. I really appreciate this. You've impacted me. I want to be able to use everything that I can obviously do to be able to make sure more people get a part of James and what James is doing. I'm going to make sure that all the links are below so that you're going to be able to get access to, number one, James's book, which I'm very excited for, two, Super Fast Business, and also jamesschramko.com. Did I jump the gun for that one? No, that's okay. That'll be there. So that's all going to be below for you as well. James, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thanks for all the things that you're doing.
Now, this is where I want to make sure that you get the most out of being here, and I want to hear from you. So if you've enjoyed this episode, click like and make sure I can send you the new episodes each and every week. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, I really want to make sure that I'm giving you exactly what you need. So comment below. I want to know what you're going to take away from this episode. And the best conversations after every episode always happen in the Breaking Success Tribe. I'll pop a link below for you to join the free group so you get access to the guides, the live streams. I'm in there answering your questions personally each and every day, plus you get all the episodes as well. So thank you so much for being here and joining us. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.